What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Titletown South Florida, the Miami Herald's high school sports show. I'm Deputy Sports Editor Andre Fernandez, joined once again by my good buddy Joe Frisaro, who covers for Scorebook Live, covers for the Miami Herald. And we are at mid-season now, Joe. Can you believe we're already week 7, going to the week 7? I can't believe the season's flown by so fast already.
Yeah, I know. It's like it just seemed like you're getting ready to go to St. Thomas and get that big classic going, and now here we are. And it's October, and that's when the fun starts, right? Yeah,
absolutely. We already got big district games that have already been played, but the nitty gritty gets down to it in the next couple of weeks, and even games that aren't district play. Heavyweight matchups between teams that we expect to contend for state titles are on the docket for this week and the next couple of weeks. So definitely should be fun. If you're watching this show, remember, everybody, it's available both at MiamiHerald.com and on YouTube. We appreciate the viewership, everybody watching the show over the course of the season. But let's get right to it. And one of the teams that I know I've been wanting to talk about for the past couple of weeks, but Mother Nature kept getting in the way, kept delaying this result of this game. It was the South Broward Bulldogs, who've kind of flown a little bit under the radar, but they're one of the surprise teams of this season. And a textbook example was this game against Dr. Crop, a game that likely will be the decisive game to see who wins that District 13 3M championship. First, they play a quarter, not this past Friday, the Friday before, and go up 7-0. Then they get rained out, and they end up having to finish the game on a Tuesday night, which is weird, like a Tuesday night football. I mean, other than the MAC conference, who else plays on Tuesday nights? I mean, really. So we started off, and Crop, one of the more improved teams in town. We know Tommy Caporal's done a good job there. His team starts with this opportunistic play by Kal-El Pascal. Yeah, Kal-El, named just like Superman, and he's Superman for those Lightning. Here's a forced fumble that he forced early on in the game. But if we're going to talk turnovers, you got to go with South Broward. I mean, this team, I don't know if you knew, they're averaging 4 turnovers forced per game. They think they're pretty much, and I think they're right, they think they're leading Broward County right now in turnovers, and they forced 9 combined between that first quarter and then the resumption of the game later on. 9 turnovers overall. Here's a look at a couple of them. Here's an interception early in the game by Terrence Johnson. And then South Broward came back, and as Crop cut the lead to 20-7, forces this fumble, this recovery, key to stopping any momentum that the Lightning had. So as we see there, the key for the Bulldogs has been their defense throughout that 5-0 start. Here's what Coach Charles McCray had to say about it.
Coach, so your team comes back after that, get the game suspended on Friday, and just comes out and takes care of business. I mean, can you talk about just the way they have all season so far?
Well, I mean, it's hard when you come back when the morale of the team is high on a Friday, and to ask them to stop playing, practice, and then go play another game is crazy because it was a sloppy game for us. A lot of turnovers. Good defense played pretty good. We could definitely play way better than that. Offensively, we were struggling a little bit just to kind of find an identity in what we wanted to do offensively. But, at the end of the day, we got the W, and we'll go on to the next week. I think we played pretty good as a team overall, but you definitely got a lot of cleaning up to do.
Turnovers have been a big part of why you're 5-0 right now.
Yes.
9 more in this game combined.
That's crazy.
Can you talk about how opportunistic this team creates?
Oh yeah, man. We got a good group, and that front 7 creates a lot of pressure in order for those guys to get those turnovers, and the cause the fumbles and the sacks and stuff like that, man. It's just I can't ask them for what they've been doing. They give me everything that they got, and then we push them in practice every day, and it's showing out on the field.
Yeah, what's it been like seeing the results? For this, building to this.
Well, it's been awesome because these are the kids that stuck with us. through thick and thin. They stayed right here. They stayed put. They stuck with us, and they were coachable. And we coached the heck out of them. And, I mean, I got an awesome offensive coordinator, and I got an awesome defensive coordinator. Yeah. And it's showing out right now. Every Friday we show up ready to play.
Yeah. Obviously still a long way, but this victory puts you in good shape in the district. And you talk about the importance of getting this one for that.
I mean, just like last year, we had a pretty good game against them last year, and we shot ourselves in the foot by not taking care of business when we needed to. So, I mean, this is the first win in the district. I mean, we're trying to control, where our faith is and lines with the playoffs and all that stuff. But, our goal is to go 1-0 each week.
Yeah, having a guy like Humphrey in the back, Wheatley Humphrey, in the background, just the backfield, how big of a weapon he is, and you can use him on both sides. I mean, he's making plays on defense today too.
Chris is our Travis Hunter,
Yeah.
And, as you see, we got other backs that can jump in and change the pace of the game. That number 21, man, that kid's a freshman. Jaden, he's a freshman. Yeah. This kid, plays JV. I only can play him 2 quarters, and he's scoring 4 or 5 touchdowns. Yeah. And then producing, fourth quarter, he can come in and produce. And I'm like, to have a weapon like that and to see the future of our program is awesome.
So the rest of it, pretty much for South Broward, Joe, came down to the legs of University of Miami commit Chris Humphrey. And this is a kid I wanted to talk to you more about a little bit. Finished with 2 touchdowns. The Canes commit had a great day on the ground. I think ended up with 76 yards only, but looked like he dominated when he did carry the football more than anything. I mean, this is a versatile kid. They play him on defense at corner a little bit. Let's show you the 2 touchdowns right here of Chris Humphrey back-to-back here. So Humphrey, you could tell, a kid that could be a contributor once he gets to Miami. He committed to them back in April, but also has offers from others like Georgia Tech, Cincinnati, a 3-star back that can do it all. I mean, this kid, I think, when you look at what the Hurricanes have done this year, a big reason's been the ground game. When you throw this kid into the mix, it looks like Miami's still getting a lot of these key contributors.
Chris, I wanted to ask you just about the start of this season, 5-0. What's it taking to get to this point, for this team?
I feel like the whole team, we got a good connection. We play fast, physical. Defense how they on. Defense always on the same page. Always got to get us through a dogfight. But the reason why we 5-0 is because our team believe in we believe in the system, and we're gonna keep on believing in it.
I saw you were playing some corner, and you're part of that defense too. How easy does it make it on offense when those guys can just get you the ball back so fast like that?
It's really easy because last year I ain't really had a lot I ain't really have the same backers that got the same skill set as me. So I can take a break on offense, I can go to defense, and I don't have to worry about me got to sub back in when I'm tired because I already know the next man going to step up.
How do you, any running back that you kind of look up to, somebody that you kind of, try to imitate a little bit, try to pattern your game after? Or?
Christopher Johnson.
Chris Johnson, okay.
Christopher Johnson Jr.
Okay. The commit, you talk about that, Canes, what do you think of the Canes season so far? Obviously the success they've been having so far.
I feel like if everybody stays, if all the recruits stay, all the coaches keep doing the same thing, you got a shot at winning and going to the national playoffs.
What's the message kind of been like from them as you go forward through this season?
Keep going. When I get there, we're going to have a line to block. So I'm going to keep on pushing. When I get there, I'm going to do my dollar.
So yeah, Joe, let's I don't know if you had a chance to see South Broward this year much, but let's talk a little bit about it. I mean, I don't know, Chris Humphrey looks like, like I said before, another kid that can step in at UM next year and just add to that mix with Henry Parrish and all the guys that Mario's been able to get over there.
Yeah, and what's impressive about Chris is a big playmaker. I mean, according to Max Preps, 173.3 yards per game rushing. So, when you get that, I think he's averaging almost 15 yards a carry, at least in the early going. But some of that, hopefully Max Prep was up to date with that, but just shows the capability. I guess a year ago as a junior, he rushed for 1,166 yards. So this kid is no stranger to picking up bulks of yardage. And what strikes me too, Dre, I mean, he's one of those products of the 7-on-7, which I know so many of our great players down here take part in, and that puts them on the map. That gets them a lot of exposure, and no surprise in the talent-rich South Florida, we got another playmaker here. But again, yeah, the big play capability. 3-star. Is he going to move up to a 4-star? Is he going to play himself into that type of performance? I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at him, I mean, the way they used him in that game, power runner that can do some pretty good running between the tackles, but also when you sweep him outside, that speed kind of takes over right there, and he showed it in that game against Crop. I mean, I'm interested to see, because this South Broward team, 5-0 right now, still has a few tests down the road. They're going to face Miramar, I know for sure, and then a couple other teams down the stretch that are going to push them. So I'm curious to see how Humphrey does against some of those bigger, more elite defenses that he's going to face.
Oh, no doubt, no question. And their quarterback, they're getting really good quarterback play from Randy Phillips.
Randy
He's
Phillips,
averaging, almost 272 yards a game through the air. So when you combine a guy who can pass, I think he's 6'5". He's got really good size. At least that's what he's listed at. So you got a really good size, quarterback, and then you got a running back who's averaging almost 175 yards a game with, like you say, could run between the tackles and breakaway speed as well. That's a pretty good looking offense that South Broward has right now.
Yeah, the shout out to some of their guys on defense, like Junior Samore Price was one of the guys that had a couple of interceptions in that game. Terrence Johnson, like we showed, had another one. I mean, a very opportunistic defense that's going to keep them in a lot of games.
How much is this Sean Burke? I see he's tight end. He's and the defensive end they list him at. He's averaging almost 22 yards a catch as well. So yeah,
he's got weapons.
They got weapons, and I always like the teams that could get the tight end involved.
Right. So. Yeah, you don't see a lot of those down here, but when they can, especially the big prototypical looking tight end types, that's always an extra edge that they have there. But let's talk a little bit about another team that's impressed a lot, even though this ended up being a defeat. But they had all of us, I remember on Friday night, looking at our phones and waiting to see if this was going to happen or not. Coconut Creek almost shocked the country by almost taking down Chaminade. They wouldn't go away. I mean, Chaminade did what they seem to do in every game. They jump out to the big lead. They went up 21-0. Here's UM commit JoJo Trader winning a 50-50 ball in the corner of the end zone, showing what he can do as usual.
Touchdown.
And another game, another Chaminade INT. I feel like every game they're getting interceptions. Zaquan Patterson, another UM commit. Speaking of UM commits, with this one right here. But Coconut Creek, when they needed the big play, they got it. James Hayes hits Giovanni Dominique, 69-yard touchdown here to get them back in the game at 21-7.
Good job, Zaquan. Hit. Oh, my God.
But then after cutting it down to 21-14, Trader makes another huge play on this score. And there's that kid again, Arwin Jackson. I'm excited about that running back. I know, Bullock gets a lot of attention, but here's a touchdown for Arwin Jackson that made it 35-14. Yeah, and that kid Jackson, I think it's an opportunity right now for him because Bullett's hurt. So I think a moment right now, these next couple of weeks, for him to kind of showcase what he can do, the youngster out there. But Creek did not go away. Here they go again. Cut it down, got another couple of touchdowns, cut it to 35-27 on this Samaj Wallace touchdown catch. But again, that defense, Chaminade and Curtis John Vieira, another kid that we've talked about a lot on this show, makes the big plays. 4th INT in just 3 weeks. So Joe, we can talk about Chaminade all the time. But we really want to talk about Creek, because even though there was a loss, you know, they're 4-2. They have quality wins this season. They've beaten Western. They've beaten Blanche Ely. They beat Plantation. Some of those wins convincingly in a rout. And their only losses are now a respectable defeat up at Gainesville, Georgia, a team that's nationally ranked, and now another one where they were right down to the wire with a chance to beat Chaminade. Even though Chaminade's got a couple of guys out, we know how deep that team is, and still this is a heck of an accomplishment for the Cougars. I mean, some of the main guys on this team, Elijah Cannon, the FAU commit, a senior, can play some offense as well as corner. You know, they're secondary. Hayeja Miller, Toledo commit. Also, Jamari Holtzclaw, not a major recruit, but their workhorse in the backfield too. I mean, this is a Creek team that probably is the breakout team of South Florida.
Yeah, they kind of been that, you know, school of in Broward County that just keeps surprising and obviously very talented. And I want to talk a little bit about James Hayes, their quarterback, who just seems to be, you know, just taking his game to another level. And, you know, I guess last year he was dealing with a little bit of an ACL injury that kind of, you know, disrupted his season. But clearly, as a senior right now, his stock is on the rise. I saw one of those highlights. It looked like he was, you know, running to his left, throwing, you know, against his body, basically. He made that long touchdown pass, you know, and you're doing that against Chaminade with their speed on defense. This is a legit quarterback who is probably, you know, going to be heavily recruited right now. What are you hearing about, you know, where he might be leaning, Dre?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like an FBS school for sure. I mean, I don't know. Some of these guys, it's interesting because, like, you see like a Toledo commit right now, and I wonder if it's, you know, they're taking the commit early to just get something, you know what I mean? And then some of these bigger schools are going to come around later when we get a little closer to signing day, when things move around a bit, that sort of thing. It wouldn't surprise me if Hayes signs on with one of these, you know, maybe these you know, group of 5 programs, maybe. And then there's always the transfer portal. I mean, he could start his career there and all of a sudden end up, if he balls out and does great, could end up somewhere even bigger. I mean, he's that type of player that I think the exposure maybe hasn't really gotten there yet. Maybe I think maybe down the road, teams might take programs might take a little more notice of him. And for Creek's sake, I hope they keep playing in these high-profile games, because, like you and I saw it, we're going to get to Heritage now in a minute, but you and I saw it at Heritage. All these college coaches are always there.
Oh, no doubt.
Games.
Yeah.
Like half of FSU's staff was there the other night when they were beating up on Gibbons. And I mean, that Creek is going to be in these games more and more, where their kids are going to get that kind of exposure.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Hayes, the stats. I'm 6'3", 218 pounds, and apparently very strong arm. Obviously, we can see him move around in a pocket. He's showing big playability against elite competition. Yeah, it's going to be fun, you know, to see, you know, how he finishes the year up. And obviously, they've probably been one of the top 3 or 4 stories of team stories certainly in Broward County in the first half of the season. And we'll see if they can carry it all the way to the finish line. Yeah,
I mean, I honestly, the way they're playing, I wonder if they could be like this year's Homestead, let's say. I mean, Homestead itself is still in the mix, but, you know, St. Thomas is the team to beat, of course, the 4-time champion and all that. But I wonder if just the way that defense can match up with some of these elite teams, if they can avoid, maybe they can cut down permitting some of these big plays. To me, there's no reason to think they can't at least have a shot at beating a Homestead or maybe even beating a St. Thomas down the road.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of these coaches, they won't talk about moral victories and so forth. I'm sure Creek's not doing the same. You know, they're right there with a team that's going to be fighting for a national championship. But clearly, when you go toe-to-toe with Chaminade and you didn't get blown out and you scared them and they had to make a defensive play at the end of the game to avoid a potential of a tie that can send them to overtime, that has to help a program like Coconut Creek, and that has to help the confidence level, because it's not going to get, the talent level is not going to get much better than that, the opposition. So they know what it takes to face that level, and they know the few little mistakes in the game that if they could tighten up some areas, obviously stay healthy. But, you know, again, the fun team, probably, like I said, top 3 or 4 story of the year, and certainly in Broward County in the first half.
Well, I don't normally move teams up after a loss in our polls, but this week for the Herald poll, I had to move them up a spot. But just the respect I had for what they were able to do, even in defeat, you could just tell that this is one of the better teams overall. And, you know, Coach Sloan, we thank him for joining us on the show last week, and he's done a great job. Hats off to them. Here's a team that's gaining confidence too, although they're the more established team that's had success in the past. That's American Heritage, all over Cardinal Gibbons the other day in their annual rivalry game to control that district. Now they're comfortable in the driver's seat in District 12 2M. The Patriots, we were just sitting there with our mouths open watching them light up the scoreboard early on. 5 plays of over 50 yards. Here's a couple of them. We'll start with the passing game. Via Bell hits sophomore sensation Zamari Sanders for a touchdown pass early on. And if that wasn't good enough, look at this touchdown pass from Bell to Brandon Bennett, and the effort by Brandon Bennett there at the end to get those extra yards and get in the end zone. But the story of this game on offense for Heritage was the running game. 367 total yards on the ground. The trio of backs of DeAndre Desenor, Byron Lewis, Chance Washington. Here's some of those highlights. Here's Byron Lewis's TD. And here's a short yardage score by Chance Washington, who's kind of the power combo with the speed of the other guys. And here's a touchdown for him. The rest was Heritage's defense, too, because we talk about the running game, but 5 sacks, I believe it was. Christian Moreau and Omarion Abraham combined for this one early on against Gibbons. Yeah, so just a complete game effort, a 48-7 route. And Heritage, the talk was that they were younger this year, but younger doesn't mean they weren't any less talented, and they're showing it right now. Now they're getting those reps that they needed to get. But let's talk a little bit about those guys. I mean, Sanders impressed me, Joe. I know one of their assistant coaches, Mario Perez, told us before the game they were going to try to get him, what is it he told us? That he catches everything. I mean, not just the speed factor, but this.
Yeah, he said you can't overthrow him.
You can't overthrow him.
You can't, because he's so fast. He's so fast. And they were saying a 10-2. He runs a 10-2, and Bennett runs a 10-4. Right. This is elite speed to go with Malachi Tony, who is, already as a freshman a year ago was on everybody's board and an elite receiver down here as well. I mean, the only team that kind of, when you see the collection of skill players that comes to mind is Chaminade. And, think about Chaminade a year or two ago, obviously with Smith still there and JoJo, they're still there. But these are sophomores with a sophomore quarterback in Diabell, who's growing, really growing up as well. That was impressive. That was watch out. And that's the team. We were talking a little about Coconut Creek, losing the close one to Chaminade the week or so before when Heritage lost to Chaminade. They kind of came of age a bit in that second half. Again, moral victory, no, but you could see signs that Heritage was gaining some confidence, figuring it out. If their interior lines can hold up, they're going to be right in it, contending for a state title as well. But skilled players and youth and speed and raw talent and the ability to hit a home run with 2 or 3 wide receivers, and then you got Byron Lewis, who do the power running with Desenor, with the speed that he provides. And then, like you say, our boy Chance Washington, we interviewed him after the game as well. The guy who could pick up that tough 1 yard. I think he finished with 70 yards in the game too. So, when you got 3 guys, in the backfield that are weapons and at least 3 wide receivers that you could stretch the field on, wow, watch out. I mean, again, if they can hold up in the interior defensively, they play a very physical style of football. And Mike Smith built, Heritage is always Heritage, but they're starting to believe that they can contend, and it probably took the loss to Chaminade and the way it happened to say, hey, look, we talked about it a little bit with Mike after that game. We thought that the youth of Heritage, their adrenaline against Chaminade, they were trying so hard being young kids, and they were making a lot of self-inflicted wounds, mistakes, and they fell down, I think, 21-0 before they can blink an eye, and then had to, come back, which is hard to do against that team. And if they play composed, Gibbons had no answers. They had no answers for any part of their game except for the kid who had the long kickoff returns. That was the only weakness that Heritage showed was kickoff coverage. And they certainly had a lot of kickoff opportunities, because they scored so often. But overall, very, very impressed with American Heritage's performance.
Yeah, this kid Bennett, already has offers from Georgia, FSU, Miami, you name it. I mean, they're all going to roll in, I'm sure. Bama, everybody is on this kid, and you could tell why. I mean, the physique, the size, also the hands, the speed, and Desenor, just in terms of he gets loose, and he looks like one of the Dolphins' weapons out there. Like there's just a blazer too, and the Sanders kid. I mean, this Heritage team is built now to the point where if they keep this all together, this is a good 3-year run here where they're going to have a very good shot, even though they're in Class 2M and Central's there and all these other teams, but they're going to be in it. I mean, they could be at least be in the finals for the next 3 years if this team stays together. No doubt.
Obviously that's why I say health, and in the interior, because they can control clock with you. They could, if they need to take the air out of the ball a bit, they can do that and grind out and shorten the game that way. But when you have those explosive weapons, man, when you could, we were joking that we couldn't get up and down the sideline fast enough because they throw a 70-yard pass play, and we're running from one side of the field to the other trying to catch up to get video. They were making it look really easy, and if you're not a team with speed in your secondary and the ability to have a pass rush, and then it'll come down to Dia. If Dia, obviously he's a sophomore, very talented quarterback. He finds the way, like Cedric Bailey at Chaminade has, to make everybody happy and distribute the ball and take what's given and run the game. When he figures that out and gets all the weapons, whenever he wants it, could complete. This team could get 10 yards in big chunks in a hurry. They could stretch you out and get, yards on the ground. It was a very, very impressive performance, and in all phases. It's going to be interesting to see, how it rolls out to the end from. They got Western this week, so Heritage is kind of finding their stride.
Let's hear from those running backs right now. We talked to Byron Lewis, DeAndre Desenor, and Chance Washington after the game.
Yeah, I just asked DeAndre the same thing, just to come out, and I think it was like 5 plays of like 50 or more and just bury them early. How important was that for everybody?
Coming off a loss, it was very important for us to jump out early and get an early lead and, just impose our will. I feel as if we left off at the Chaminade game with a pretty good run, but, we went through a bye week and we just enhanced what we was working on, and, the future, what we just showed is just a little piece of what the future has to come, That's that.
It seemed like after the first quarter against Chaminade, you guys have been, like, you grew up in that game. You didn't get the outcome you wanted, but it seemed like you grew up and you certainly carried over tonight.
Absolutely. I feel as if, playing against a team of that high caliber, all of those guys are future D1 guys, and I'm going to be playing up against some guys in the future. And, with the experience I got from that game, I feel as if it boosts my level of play, and it just made me a better player, honestly. As a player on and off the field, I'm able to help my teammates and show them the ropes, because not a lot of dudes in high school get that opportunity to play up against a high caliber team like that, and just to come out there and play probably my best football, and to go from a bye week into the next week and leave off the same intensity. It feels even better,
How much do you enjoy, because you showed your speed, you guys have a ton of that, but you can grind, you could power it, and how much pride do you take in, hey, you're trying to catch them and you got to try to stop me?
that's what makes our offense so special. You know, you got guys with speed and you got guys with power. How do you stop that? You know, it's very difficult, you know, because you see us line up and you think, oh, we're gonna power you out, but no, we're gonna go deep. We're gonna take a shot. You know, you get the best of both worlds, and I'm just glad to have teammates, you know, that's able to go out there and, you know, run their behinds off, because honestly, with them being that fast, it helps me out. It lightens the box for me. It makes me an even bigger threat than what I already am. And it's just a blessing to have teammates like that around me.
The combo of the three of you, and the fact that you guys have known each other since you were little kids, I mean, how much fun does that make that back there?
It makes it even better. You know, shout out to Coach Mike, definitely. You know, he brought us in, you know, and we knew that whenever we get in, there's no drop off. Everybody's gonna go in there and eat, and Coach Mike had a great rotation tonight. I'm just grateful to have, you know, a coach and a teammates where I know that I can rely on them to do their job, even when I'm on the sideline.
Yeah. DeAndre, you guys came out, and I think it was like 5 plays of like 50 or more yards right away. How important was that to just like bury them and not let them even have a chance?
I had to. First play, I already knew I was going to get the ball. I had to strike, you know, do my thing. Couldn't take my foot off the pedal. That's all.
Yeah. You and Byron, have you ever done that before where like first quarter, both of you are over 100 already, like in one quarter?
That right there was shocking. And it was like less than like, I think we both had 5 carries each. So like that was impressive.
When you guys could have that speed on the receivers, and you have obviously a lot of speed in the backfield, but to be able to run the ball and then have threats like that, what's the potential of this team?
It's just we already knew that we had all the speed. Nobody messing with us. And I already knew when I was going to get on the sideline, nobody's going to catch me.
Showed everything tonight.
Heritage for years has been always about running the ball, and that's what we're going to do every single game. Run the ball, tote it every single play, because that's what we are. They can't stop us when we do that. That's just our offense.
You could see, as you even scored that last touchdown, just the pride and the drive that, you know, to how much you guys like that.
That's Patriot pride. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
Patriot pride.
What's it like being part of this backfield when you have this group together? You know, how you guys get along off the field, that sort of thing?
I love these guys. These are my brothers. Me and Byron Lewis, we've been doing this since we were 12. You know what I'm saying? DeAndre, I knew him since I was a kid, too. We all click.
You know, to get this win, obviously it's a rivalry game. To hit those big plays early and just put them away, how important was that?
Really important. They never could stand up with us for I don't know how many years, but this is what we do. Every time on that scoreboard, that's what we do to them.
All right, well, now we're going to shift to our pick segment. But before we do that, as always, I'd like to mention the Player of the Week polls that we run every week, the voter polls at the MiamiHerald.com. They are available. And so you have your chance to vote. It's free. And you can vote as many times as you want for the top players in Dade County and Broward County. This isn't just football. Remember, this is every sport. Jordan Leo, the quarterback at Doral Academy, is one of the candidates this week. Threw for over 250 yards and 3 touchdown passes to lead the Firebirds to a crucial 20-16 win over Goldman. I say crucial because they're in the dogfight for one of the final play. They will be in the dogfight for one of the final playoff spots in Region 4-4M. On the cross-country track, we've got Joshua Ruiz at Belen continues to rack up. This time he didn't win the individual championship, but the pre-state invitational is one of the best meets in the state leading up to the state meet in Tallahassee. He broke 15 minutes on his run there to lead the Wolverines to their 6th consecutive championship of that event. Belen cross country, the standard for many years, but this year taking it to a new level. They're ranked 4th in the country, and Joshua Ruiz is a big reason for that. Then at Carrollton, Grace Aldrich ran a 1958 to win the Youth Fair Invitational. We also have football again at Gulliver. Julian Terry had 10 tackles, including 6 for loss and 2 sacks, a key win for the Raiders over Miami Killian. The Raiders are going to be competing for a playoff spot in Class 2M as well. And in the swimming pool, we haven't done much yet. Karina Santa Maria from St. Brendan won the 200 free and the 100 fly. A lot of the playoffs for those sports are coming up soon. In Broward County, a couple of kids we mentioned, or one that we mentioned before, Samore Price from South Broward, 2 INTs. Also had a sack. He returned one of those INTs for a touchdown against Crop. He had a big week. Davi Belfort, who we've mentioned a lot for Western, had another big game, 14 of 22, 264, 4 touchdown passes, including a 99-yard touchdown pass in a win over Piper last week. On the golf course, Jonathan Weinberg of Pinecrest won the Morrison Invitational after shooting a 70. He's had a great year. And on the volleyball court, Aquinas is dominating once again. Zori Brown is a big reason for that. 42 combined kills and wins over Kings Academy, Coral Springs Charter, and Archbishop McCarthy. I know the Big 8 tournament is coming up in Broward, and I'm sure St. Thomas has dominated that for many, many years. But they're thinking big things this year. They're looking to get back to state championship status on the volleyball court. So follow that. We'll have those results in the weeks to come. But now to look at week 7. And Joe, we're going to start bright and early. For people that are probably watching this on a Wednesday morning, tonight there's football already. I'll say it tonight at that point, and that's Palmetto against Miami Edison, a good matchup down at Tropical Park. We know a little bit of these teams from early on. Palmetto, their one albatross is Columbus. They can't get past the Explorers. But other than that, they've been good this year with Ja'Cory Barney leading the way on offense. Edison, surprisingly, too, 4-1. They have a good win over Northwestern. They slipped up on the road a couple weeks ago, but bounced back and got a district win against LaSalle. This is an interesting game because I think it's going to come down to, can Edison run the football? Can they establish themselves, with that running game and control the clock? Juice Joseph, the running back for them, has had a great year. But I think I'm going to go with Palmetto just because Palmetto's defense might be the best defense they've had probably since the COVID year in 2020 when they were so dominant, when they had all those big studs on the defensive side of the ball. I think Palmetto edges them maybe by a little bit here.
I kind of agree with you, Dre. I think this could be one of those 14-10 type of games. I think it could be one of those, field position, rely on your defense. I'm very curious to see Edison in that very tough 2M. Are they, they're battle tested. When you're in 2M, you're battle tested. And like you say, Palmetto with having to deal with Columbus and the bigger classification. But I think I'm going to go with a low scoring, like that 14-10-ish type of game, or 17, 10 or 17, 13 or 14, that type of game.
Yeah, and not to take away anything from Edison's defense too. They've had some playmakers this year. They've done a good job slowing teams down. So it's a very interesting matchup. It's who can kind of control the line of scrimmage there. But it'll be a good one, and standalone game on a Wednesday night. No competition from anyone else on that game. But on Friday night, usually when all the big games are, going back to that Heritage team, taking on Western. Western's won back-to-back games after that slow start. Davi Belfort, a big reason for that. And some of their wide receivers, too, have had big years. They're going to have their hands full, though, with all those playmakers, though. I don't know if they can pull it off, even being at home against such a deep Heritage team.
Yeah, you got to kind of feel for Western because they're really talented and a proud program, and they're going to have some losses if they don't figure it out. Obviously, Belfort, that quarterback at Western, is as tough a kid as you'll see, and they're asking a lot for him because he's got to throw, he's got to win games with his legs and his arm. Be very interesting to see the defensive packages Heritage has for them, and will there be, because we know how Heritage, the Gibbons game is a huge game for them. We saw our good friend Brandon Innes, made the trip down because Ohio State had an off week, so it was good to see Brandon Innes come down and see that game as well at Heritage. But now they have to avoid, if you're going to, this is a youthful team, you got to avoid the letdown after the emotional big win, especially after, when you're going after Chaminade and then Gibbons and then Western. So I anticipate this being a very competitive game, but I do kind of think that Heritage has a bit of the edge right now. If they win, probably about, I could see a 10-point win, as I see, it being decided, Western having its chances. Western just hasn't put it together. They've dealt with some adversity, some injuries, and they're just trying to put it together. But again, I saw them against St. Thomas. They had they didn't go away. The score was ended up being pretty lopsided, but they had the ability to stay with them. But I could see like about a 10-ish point win for Heritage.
Yeah. Also the elements. Let's see how it looks at
Western.
That's true too. They got that grass field that gets sloppy real quick.
Yeah, exactly. And we know what it's like to be in rain delays.
Yeah, we saw that in the Broward Showcase, how it slowed everybody down. But that could favor Western too, in a sense, because then I'm sure they're not going to mind slowing down the Brandon Bennett's and the Zamari and the DeAndre Desenors and those guys. Yeah. But we'll see what happens. They're still, Western in that fight for a spot in Class 4M, of course. Here's a game that name-wise still opens a lot of eyes, still draws a lot of fans, but can it live up to being the rivalry type game that it used to be in the past? I don't know. Northwestern, to their credit, we've talked about how young they are too. Michael Lee Harris, the coach there, they come up with a big win on the road at Cardinal Newman. ugly 7-2, just one score, Calvin Russell at quarterback, and they got it done. But obviously, this is the rivalry game, the Commissioner's Cup between Central and Northwestern, and Central's dominated this rivalry in recent years for a reason. I mean, I don't think Central trips up here. I think they're motivated to beat their rival, to kind of squash them when they're down, type of thing. But maybe Northwestern can keep it somewhat interesting early on.
Oh yeah, emotionally, it's going to be an amazing atmosphere at Traz, and Northwestern's going to show up to play. Again, Central's seeking its identity. They're shuffling in the 2 quarterback system and a bunch of running backs. But in terms of talent on the field, Central's extremely dangerous. And I mean, they should take care of business. I fully expect them to. It would be probably I'm rooting for it that Northwestern, for their program, makes a good showing. Not to show too much favoritism, but I like to see them make a good showing. But Central is Central, and Jube is just waiting for them to put it all together and look like a championship team. And to be honest, I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to find that stride, and I think they probably move a little closer to finding that stride, this week against Northwestern.
Yeah, and here's another game going south, and on a Saturday night, which you don't see a lot of big games sometimes on Saturday nights. But Columbus is taking on Homestead, 2 state title contenders. Now they're not in each other's way. Homestead's in 3M, Columbus is in 4M, but it's a good gauge for both teams at this point in the season. See where they're at. That game's going to be at Tropical Park, so gets Homestead to come up from down there in Homestead and play this game. I'm curious to see what the Broncos can do. I think if things break well and they don't turn the ball over, this kind of reminds me of last year when Homestead, right around week 5, week 6, they got Joshua Townsend back from injury and then pulled off some big wins. Took down Northwestern. I forgot there was another game. I think they scored a big victory. I can't remember against who, but they seem to rise to the occasion in these types of games. I mean, I think I kind of have to give Columbus the benefit of the doubt just on their defensive side. They've been so good this year. Their offense has been they've had their moments. They've struggled a little bit at times. So I'm going to go with Columbus, but it wouldn't surprise me. The Broncos are the type that can rise up and win a game like this.
Oh, I agree. And I think this game is going to show more, because we kind of expect Columbus is going to be there at the end, that they're just so businesslike and they have good depth, and they just, can win a close game. They could win a low scoring game. They could, beat you with a lot of weapons. But is this going to be the game that kind of launches Homestead back towards getting towards the that state playoffs and the state championship like they did? So I think that's what makes this game fascinating. I guess if you just had to make a pick, I would have to say Columbus, very close, but it'd be curious to see. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if there's an upset in this one.
Yeah. And last but not least, we'll go back to Thursday night at Traz Powell Stadium. Here's the game of the week that we both agree. We talked about it when Norland had the bye week. We said right after that, they're going to have the 2 doozies, the 2 games against fellow Class 2M contenders. Norland against Booker T. Washington, Thursday night at Traz at 7. This is very even. I think it's going to really come down to Norland's physicality up front on defense. I think if they can contain Booker T from running the football, force Claudel Sherman into making some mistakes, that's how they can win this game. I mean, Enio Yapour's experience at quarterback, it would be disappointing for Norland if they don't win this game, because the following week we know they're facing Central. That's the team everyone's gunning for. If they slip up before that, but I can't discount Booker T. That staff, Ice Harris, they have won these big games before, and they get the best out of those kids every time there's one of these high stakes games, and they themselves need to be considered as state title contenders, and this is an opportunity game for them to make a statement going forward.
No doubt. Boy, it's 2M loaded. When you just think of just how unfair it is, how we got legitimately 4 or 5 teams that could be state champions in these 2 counties down here. But man, you're right. And it's who wants to make that statement? Is this the game that Norland says, Central, we're coming for you and we're going to knock you off, and we are going to be the face of the of 2M in Dade County right now and make our mark? Do they make that stride and then carry that into next week's showdown with Central? or does Booker T show don't count us out just yet? You know, we're still there. We had a fairly close loss to Central. I guess they had a big lead early and Booker T made it a game. They probably a little more battle tested, to be honest. You know, Norland probably said hasn't really been challenged in a month. And does that work to Booker T's advantage that, you know, they've already experienced playing Central. They know what that feels like. But again, it's a very fascinating game. And I'm going to have to go with Norland as well to give them the benefit of the doubt that, you know, they are ready to win this game and create next week what will easily be, you know, the game that everybody's going to be watching, probably in the state of Florida, not just South Florida.
Yeah, that Norland defensive front with the Lumen twins, with Jermaine Carter, and then, you know, Booker T's defense themselves, Jamori Flagg back there, Ben Hanks Jr., one of the best in the secondary on any team, statewide, maybe nationwide. This is going to be a fun matchup. I think this is another, you know, game of the year before the game of the year next week, also with Central and Norland. That's what we were saying to begin the episode. Mid-season now, you start to see these big contests, these big, fun, you know, high-stakes games, and those are the best. So we'll be back. We'll be back next week to recap that game and several others, and then obviously continue to look ahead with the Norland Central next week and other key matchups. But Joe, thank you once again for co-hosting the show. We appreciate you being on board. For Joe Forsaro, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thanks everybody for watching Titletown South Florida.